I've decided to kind of make this film, and first of all, I want to thank all of the people that have been following my channel for over a decade now and liking my films, commenting. Some don't like, some do like, but you know what? It's better to be talked about than not at all, isn't it? And I believe that if all you ever received was positive feedback, then you're doing something wrong. So thank you even to the haters. I sincerely mean it when I say that from the LGBTQI community, I've had so many comments over the past couple of decades from countries where it's banned, where it's death by punishment, and your comments have meant so much to me. The fact that you've got something from my films has just been awesome, and that's kind of what keeps me going and making these films. I'm going through a bit of a existentialist crisis again, and this has become my therapy in a way. I've sought so much therapy in the past, cognitive behavioural therapy, considered neuro-linguistic programming, but it's always been too expensive. Just ordinary therapy, psychodynamic therapy. I've come to the realisation that although I've taken certain aspects from that therapy and utilised them effectively for the most part, but the best therapist you could ever seek is yourself. I don't know whether I'm being overly dramatic, hence the title of the film, or whether I've just reached a peak in life where I feel that other than go to see the Northern Lights and go to India, and I haven't been to New York or San Francisco yet, and I really want to go. Other than that, I feel that I've experienced quite a lot in life and travelled quite a bit. And I'm just at this level now where I can't even let anybody else into my life without there being complications, and this is not a woe is me, self-pitiful story or anything. This is, I know that a lot of people who watch my films and my shorts that I put out think that, well, it's true, most of them are characters, embellished version of me, but characters all the same. But this is me, this is the real me, and I thought I would try it and give it a go, see how it pans out. You know, from a very early age, I remember feeling insecure, feeling anxious, and not comfortable within myself. Pretty much probably how most transsexuals, transgender people feel from an early age when they know that they're in the wrong body. I didn't quite feel that. I felt, obviously being gay, different, and I did feel like it wasn't, I wasn't being myself no matter what I did, no matter what I said, no matter how much I tried to keep up with the cool people or the popular people, how much I tried to please my father in terms of being a boy and my mother, added up to a very, very insecure boy that for the most part didn't feel like he belonged, felt like I should be somewhere else, felt like I actually didn't belong on that, in that environment that I was in. people just don't understand what it's like to feel so abnormally different from a very early age when you don't have that maturity and ability and cognitive way of thinking. Fuck you, I am who I am and I don't care who knows it. There are some brave young people out there that are like that, and good on you, full kudos to you. But when you're growing up in the 80s like that, it's not so good. So for most of my life, I felt like a freak. You know, people joke now, and we've embraced the word freak, queer, and faggot, and whatever other word we use to objectify. But literally, I did feel like a freak, and I didn't feel like it was cool. Not the way it's cool today.
I grew up being really ashamed of myself, ashamed of my body, ashamed of finding men attractive, ashamed of my face, ashamed of touching myself, ashamed of being me. I may have overcompensated a little bit when I turned into a man, embracing everything I was once ashamed of, expressing myself through the films I've made, verbally, sexually, psychologically, intrinsically authentic, I would hope.
Role models do come from the media, come from TV, come from films, sports, whatever. You know, it doesn't come from the monarchy or any sort of prolific politician out there, or wankers. But you know, nowadays role models come within movie stars or pop stars or whatever, and there's an abundance of gay and lesbian and transgender stars out there now, where younger people, thank God, touch wood, I'm sure this is made of wood, this balsa was paper. There's an abundance of them out there now for the young ones, but for me and for people of my era, there was fuck all. Not that I'm complaining because I would rather have grown up in my era than in Alan Turnbull's era, for example, or Oscar Wilde's era, for example, where you literally would have got thrown in prison or had your nuts cut off, even though you'd just done something fucking amazing, like decode the German Enigma code.
Fucking bad. Every day I rest clear.
But just sort of now as I've reached almost the age of 50, I'm 49 now, I'm just reflecting and thinking about a lot of things. I've lost the love of my life. I ruined that. I know it takes two, but for the most part that can be blamed on me. I've lost the love of my life, and in the past year since we've not been together, I've done a lot of pontificating and reflecting, and it's only when I look up into the blue sky, the clear blue sky, that presents itself for the most part in Australia, that I start to reminisce and I start to remember good times and times that I've had with my family and with my ex and my friends, and I've become insular. I've allowed myself to slowly and surely just become one, just me and my dog, who I love to bits. I've just come back from the vets, and incidentally, and what a harrowing experience, because he's a rescue and he just screams and almost bites people when he has an injection, so I had to muzzle him and hold him very tightly. And I love that dog. I love that dog so much, and he's had such a bad life. I got him when he was 4 years old, and I know that he's been passed around from person to person, and obviously someone has harmed him in his life, and now I have to walk in with a muzzle and say to people, to vets that are looking at me as if to say, we really should sedate him. No, I can't pay thousands of dollars every time he comes in for a blood test or for some Valium, which he's on. He's okay when he's with me, trust me. And he trusts me implicitly, that dog. And I have to say that I do feel like that the rescuing Hunter and the job that I'm doing now, working with children and adults with disabilities, has really turned my life around and really made me selfless and more empathic and understanding and patient and considerate and compassionate. But unfortunately that hasn't infiltrated into my personal life. And that's the big problem that I'm facing right now, is that I'm not fulfilled anymore. Reminiscing, and I'm seeing an amazing guy. He's awesome, really is. But I'm not prepared to compromise with him because it's all too fresh and new, and I feel that perhaps I'm not in the right headspace and that I need to be single for more than a year and just concentrate on me and my dog. And in the past, before I met my ex, I thought I needed somebody all the time. I needed to be with somebody to feel like I exist, to not feel alone. But when you get older, you realise that actually that independence is something you missed out on and you want it. And I'm not necessarily prepared at the moment to compromise, which is unfair to that person I'm seeing, which is unfair to anyone I start seeing. So perhaps I'm not ready yet, I don't know, even though he's amazing and sexy. But it's because of this that I realise that I have a fucking fucked up problem, and life just comes back to bite you in the ass, doesn't it? So for years, as I was growing up, taking lots of drugs to drown, to obliterate the insecurity and binded me to the gay community, because back then in the late 80s and the early 90s and the late 90s, drugs and clubbing was the big thing, and I loved it. It was all I lived for, which meant unfortunately I couldn't hold down any job, and the auditions that I went to as a trying wannabe actor failed abysmally. So I fucked up pretty much the first two and a half decades of my life. I fucked it up because for the first part, when I was young, I didn't enjoy my childhood. I was too deep and profound, even for a fucking 7, 8-year-old upwards. Thinking, why am I different? Why am I having dreams of holding my second cousin's hands, who were boys, by the way, and playing with their willies? Why am I not looking at girls, or I only am because they're beautiful and I want them to be on my arm and so that I can be Mr. Popular? I was just in a drug haze for the next 2 or 3 decades, which was great. I don't regret a thing, but at the end of the day, I didn't achieve much in terms of career or aspirations, goals, or anything like that. And it feels there's been 2 chapters in my life, kind of, so to speak. The first one began in 1989, and the number 89 is a very, very significant, poignant number for me. You know, I think I've said this before in my films. You know, I made the very first film on VHS analog ever in 1989 with my friend Stephen. B, my nan, who I loved to bits and was the biggest fag hag you'll ever meet on this earth. Drink any man under the table down Islington where she lived. She died at 89. C, I lived at number 89, Vesage Court in Chancery Lane for 10 years. D, the guy that I'm seeing at the moment, who's so lovely, was born in 1989. E, what was the other thing? E, I came out in 1989 after discovering acid and Heaven the nightclub in London. All this shit, which was all life-changing. Pretty much all of those events were life-changing for me. So it's weird because I have two chapters. The first is 1989, that's where it all began for me. Anything leading up to that was just shit for me. I fucking hated every minute of it. Every minute of my life up to 1989. And then I discovered this whole new world where there were guys and gals just like me out there, gay as fuck, but needed acid and drugs for me to realise that. Taking these amazing mind-bending drugs, and boy were they euphoric and pure back in the late 80s and 90s. I discovered the music that I still lay there and listen to calm me, trance, progressive house, techno, funky house. As I'm a dance fanatic. You know, I discovered all of these things at 1989, and from then on my life was much better. There were trials and tribulations and ebbs and lows and fuck-ups and happy times, but for the most part, my life began then. And I will never look back and say, you know, I regret anything. Je n'en regrette. But then the second chapter in my life, really, I've been in love twice, like really in love twice. And first was with one of my closest friends now, Tush. I love that man to bits, and I still do. Then secondly, I met my ex now. I don't want to mention his name because we aren't speaking at the moment and I don't want to upset him, but 16 years I spent with him, and he's learned from me, I learned from him. But the second chapter in my life, and so it's actually quite ironic that I should be sat here saying that I have no more to fulfill, and I feel lost, and I feel like I'm just going like this now. But actually, the second chapter in my life was in 2011 when I moved to Australia from England, and things happened. You know, Australia really is the land of luck, and things happened. And now for the past 5 years I've been in a career I don't think I would even ever get a look in England. You know, nurses in England don't get paid fuck all, so being a support worker and a team leader for disability and autistic services, I don't think would exist in England. I love, and I'm proud that I'm from England because I've learned so much from England. I love the culture, the history, the architecture, the humour, the wit, the sarcasm, the opportunities that it has provided me in the past. I'm very, very proud of it, but even though I miss my family immensely and my friends, I could never go back because I would be fucked. I'd be nothing. Literally, I would be nothing. And there's me here now thinking that right now, I don't think I'm nothing, but I just feel, I don't know, as I said before, it just feels flat. It just feels like I get fulfillment at work and then in my personal life. I'm seeking a lot of sex and a lot of it just feels like I need constant adulation and assurance, and that's why I'm not giving really anyone that's of any significance that has a good sort of that is a nice person. I'm not giving them any chance. I'm fearful in a way, I guess, that's just gonna be. That's the precedence, and that's just gonna be what it is all the time now. Who would want to chuck this boy out? 4 times he was disowned because they couldn't put the work in. Come here, Hunter, come here. Come, sit. Paw. Good boy, kiss. Cuddles. Daddy loves you. This is why I guess it makes it 100 times worse as to why I'm feeling these feelings of like I've lived too much already and I'm 50 and I could have another fucking 20, 30 years left. But it feels like, in a way, it feels like I've given a lot, and I don't mean always selflessly. I've experienced a lot, and in the last few years I have given a lot because I wanted to, not because I want to paint myself as some kind of martyr or anything like that, just that I wanted to. I love it. I love that. I love seeing the small little results that you can get from working with the people I do, and whether they're big or small, whatever, you know, any impact that you've had makes you feel really proud, and for once I'm doing something really worthy, and I'm proud, you know, I'm really proud of it. So I know that I could happily go, if I went tomorrow, I could happily go and know that that I've given back, because for a long time I was a selfish person. For a long time I was always considerate towards other people. I've never hurt somebody else intentionally, but first and foremost I had my wants and needs in the forefront, and for the past few years I haven't. I even come home and work when I shouldn't really, and so that just tells me that genuinely, sincerely, I love what I'm doing. But that doesn't mean because you love what you're doing there that's necessarily going to reflect in your personal life, and it's just weird. I feel like I needed to make this film for people out there that are maybe feeling the same, that you've come to a crossroads, you've finally got everything that you've always wanted, but then you've ruined the one thing that could make you happy, I guess. Was I stupid to have thrown that away, to let that go? Maybe some people say no, you knew that I didn't finish it for my reasons necessarily, I finished it for mine and his reasons, and it's horrible to be lonely. It's horrible. I wanted in a way to be independent again, and I don't think that it's a bad thing or an embarrassing thing to be single. Believe me, I champion people that are single and can live their lives happily, and it's a fucking fantastic thing when you can conquer it, and I thought I could. But whenever I get a chance to perhaps not be single, I kind of throw it away. And so obviously I know deep down now I've got to that stage in my life where I can be mature enough and wise enough and ugly enough to say, I want that companionship, but I know that it's not feasible. That for somebody like me, it's just, it's not right, because I'm going to end up hurting somebody else. Rather just keep hurting yourself. With this lonely, insular existence, I feel that there's this big, massive chasm deep within my chest, my guts, or wherever. A massive one, not just a little one. And surrounding that massive chasm is my work, which I get great fulfillment from. But, I go home after work. I have the weekend, and what's going to fill that void? What's, if I'm not prepared to give somebody else another chance, or make compromises, inevitable compromises, because all I'm doing is holding on, I guess, to memories of somebody that I really, really loved and was my soulmate and my best friend. And it just freaks me out when I get close to other guys now. It freaks me out because I just think I'm going to hurt you, or you're going to hurt me, or the age difference doesn't work, or you don't find what I find funny, you don't like doing what I want to do, you don't want to go and see the same film that I want to see, you don't eat what I eat, and blah 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 blah. It just all gets too fucking much, and I just want to implode inside whenever I get this close to somebody else. And again, as I'm saying this, I sound selfish, because I know there are a lot of gay guys and gay women and straight women that want the chance to meet somebody else and have the chance to pontificate and deliberate about these things. So it's not, again, it's not like I'm feeling sorry for myself. I keep saying that I'm not. I'm just, work is the only thing that keeps me sane, and for the rest of the part, outside of that world, baby, come give Daddy a cuddle, because I'll never be scared. When I went back to England in 2018, it was basically to see my dad's dead body and to see him being buried.
Weird. Waiting for funeral cards for my dad? Very. I didn't like you very much. I'm going to be honest with you. I couldn't connect with you. And that made me feel weird, sad, I guess, but more weird than anything because it felt like I didn't belong. You know, in hindsight, I didn't expect you to know any different. To know that actually, you know. Some of us aren't like that. And quite often you would verbalise your discontent over gay people, and in hindsight I don't blame you for that, but at the time, knowing I was born that way, and I think that a lot of us are, I didn't really feel good about it because I was getting it from kids off the estate as well, getting it at school, and then I'd come home to it. And I'm not saying that you did it a lot, actually, because you didn't, but you did it a few times, enough times for me to think I could never be honest, could never be myself, and I could never speak to you or Mum about anything. And I don't blame any of you for that, but that's why I felt weird. That's why I didn't like you much when I was younger. I loved you, but I didn't like you. And but seriously, Dad, we are truly fucked. Well and truly fucked.
He didn't say much, and that's not his fault. He wasn't necessarily, the most sociable or educated person on earth. I don't hold it against him. But what he did say and what he did know was coming from a typical bloke's point of view. Football, lager, food, shitting, farting, blah, blah, blah. So, of course, he wasn't necessarily going to connect with his weirdo young son that wanted Charlie's Angels and Bionic Woman and Wonder Woman dolls every Christmas. Of course, he felt a little bit peculiar about that. So again, I don't blame him. But it's like with Hunter, my dog, I got him at the age of 4, so the damage has been done. You really can't teach an old dog new tricks sometimes. You can teach them some things, but other things will never fucking go. It's been ingrained, instilled solidified, stamped, sealed, delivered. So unfortunately what happened to me in those first 2 decades of my life has ingrained. And yes, you reach a maturity in life where you know that if you've got issues that you're still dealing with, that you go and get therapy, or you stop blaming other people for it. And I never have blamed my dad or my mum for the past 20 years. I haven't. I never turned around to my dad in the last 20 years when he became, in my opinion, human and more considerate and compassionate. I never turned around to him and said, you know what, you fucked up my life. The first 2 decades of my life, you made me feel like an alien in the house. I never did that to him because I could see that he was trying to change as a person himself. And I think that happened when he saw me with the 2 people that I loved the most in the world, Tush and my ex. And I think he slowly started to change, and because he had that humility, nothing else, but he had humility ingrained into him. And he was genuine. He wasn't a person that would say, all right, you're gay, fuck off. It was a shock to him to begin with, but he didn't tell me to fuck off. And later on, as he learned and kind of got himself self-educated by meeting the people I love, and just perhaps seeing it around him more, like, you know, as I said, the media does unfortunately have a massive impact on those that just sit there watching TV, him being one of them. The more that you see it in soap operas and the more you see it on MasterChef or this cooking or whatever, 2 gay couples, the more it becomes normalised, and people that thought it was so fucking weird in the first place that they'd want to disown you, then don't. So when you haven't seen your dad for 5 years because I was in Australia and he was in England, and then you suddenly flying home to see him laying there in that casket, smelling the formaldehyde, and this man that I despised for the first 2 decades of my life. I grew to love him because I could see that he was making an effort and making changes, and he even told me that he loved me in the last few years. But just the profound impact of that feeling of every time that there's a problem in life, I go back to where it came from, the source of it, to now feeling like you didn't mean it. You didn't mean any of it. You just didn't know any better. You just wasn't educated, and you just didn't know. The death of my 2 dogs. My ex and I flew over from London to Australia over 10 years ago now. He died last March of 2020, just at the peak of COVID. Anyone that has animals and loves animals and adores animals will know just how fucking hideously devastating that is. And even though in some ways it was beautiful and poetical that they died together, because we had them euthanized together at 13, because they both had cancer. They're getting older now, but if one dies before the other one, then I think that just really sort of compounds the affinity that I have with animals and dogs, especially, and with animals in my life. because I think that at the end of the day, humans are too complex.
I've taken the steps and began to tread, but I still can't get one person out of my head. I'm strong for my work, but weak outside where I lurk. If I died tomorrow, I would be happy, for I've experienced a lot, including love. I've done some worthy things in the latter years, became less selfish, for there are others in this world that may never have some of what I've had. And for that, I have no right to feel sad.